Do you feel it? That deep, persistent pull from within? That unquenchable thirst to grow, to become more, to touch something sacred and true at the very core of your being? It's a beautiful, powerful impulse, isn't it? The whisper of your soul, inviting you onto a path of profound transformation. But have you ever noticed, my friend, how sometimes on this very path, the most sincere efforts can lead to the most unexpected dead ends? How the brightest flame of your intention, if not tended with care, can scorch the very ground you so desperately wish to cultivate. Has it ever happened that, in your quest for spiritual heights or personal breakthroughs, you've pushed yourself to the brink, adopting grueling regimens, believing that the harder the path, the closer the goal? Or perhaps you've imposed such a strict, unforgiving self-improvement discipline that the initial spark of joy fizzled out, replaced by a grim, lifeless sense of obligation? It's confusing, isn't it? You pour your heart and soul into it, and instead of lightness and illumination, you find heaviness and discouragement. Or maybe you've observed how, after a period of such fierce self-propulsion, just when you almost believed you'd reached some unprecedented peak, you were suddenly flung backward into the abyss of old habits and discovered, to your dismay, sprouts of pride or, conversely, a complete indifference to all things spiritual. We're often taught that dedication is measured by the force of our effort, that sacrifice is the highest expression of love and aspiration. And we carry this belief into our inner world. I must do more, suffer more to prove my worth, to accelerate my growth. But what if this very over-intensity, this unreasonable zeal, as the ancient sages called it, is the precise loophole through which a subtle deception creeps into our lives? What if the greatest illusions don't come cloaked in obvious negativity, but in the shining garments of supposed good? Herein lies a profound, almost paradoxical truth, one that can liberate you from this exhausting cycle of highs and lows. Genuine, sustainable transformation blossoms not from harsh self-coercion or excessive endeavors, but from the sanctuary of deep self-awareness, gentle wisdom, and compassionate balance. The most insidious opponent to your growth isn't some external force, but an internal pattern capable of twisting your noblest aspirations into instruments of your own defeat. It's that very voice whispering, "You're not doing enough," or "Look how spiritual you're becoming," undertaking all these austerities, subtly luring you into either pride, a dangerous arrogance in your great deeds, or complete exhaustion, rendering you incapable of performing even small acts of devotion. Imagine a gardener so passionate about their roses blooming that they douse them with overly concentrated fertilizer. Instead of lush blossoms, they find burnt roots and withered stems. This is the trap of misguided enthusiasm. The cunning adversary, that part of our own psyche resisting true, humble growth, is a masterful strategist. It sees your sincere desire, your dedication, and thinks, "Excellent, I can use this." It doesn't tempt you with blatant negativity. That would be too obvious for you, someone already on the path. Instead, it transforms into an angel of light. It dangles before you visions of spiritual heroism, quotes sacred texts out of context, points to extreme examples of spiritual masters, urging you to emulate them unseasonably and beyond your strength, at the wrong time and far exceeding your actual capabilities. Why does it do this? Its aim is to make you stumble, to make you believe the path itself is impossible or that you are unfit for it. If it can push you to extremes of self-denial, it knows one of three things will happen. First, you might fall into pride, imagining you're accomplishing something grand, thereby severing your connection to true humility, the bedrock of all spiritual growth. Second, you might drive your body to illness or breakdown, becoming incapable of even simple acts of kindness or reflection. Third, and perhaps most commonly, you will burn out completely, wearied by the weight of your efforts. The path will seem an unbearable burden, and your spirit, once ablaze with passion, will become indifferent to all spiritual practices. And from this state of burnout and disillusionment, it's just one step back to old habits, perhaps with even greater force. How many souls, the wise lament, have perished this way, becoming a laughingstock to their inner demons, merely because they mistook zeal without wisdom for virtue. The key they missed, the key I offer you now, is sacred discernment, a profound inner knowing. Spiritual practices, disciplines, these are not the goal, but the means. And like any tool, they must be used skillfully, at the right time, in the right measure. So how do we navigate this complex terrain, my friend? How do we honor our deep yearning for growth without falling prey to these subtle traps? Here are a few guiding stars, principles that will illuminate your way. The first and perhaps most crucial principle is to cultivate deep inner discernment. This isn't just thinking, it's feeling the truth of your motivations. Before you take on a new discipline or intensify an existing one, pause, breathe, ask yourself, where is this impulse truly coming from? Is it from love, from genuine inspiration, from a gentle call of your soul? Or is it driven by fear, fear of not being good enough, fear of missing out? Or is it fueled by ego, a desire to impress, to feel spiritually superior? Learn to distinguish the quiet, calm voice of wisdom from the insistent, demanding shout of the ego. For instance, you might feel a sudden urge to undertake a long fast. Is this a calm, considered decision arising from inner readiness? Or did you just read about someone who did it and now you feel a competitive pressure? This subtle difference is everything. The second luminous principle is to embrace the sacred rhythm of gradualness. Remember, it is better to ascend little by little than to grasp for the heights all at once, only to be forced to descend later in shame. Our culture demands instant results, but the soul unfolds like a flower, petal by petal. True, lasting transformation is a gentle ascent, not a desperate scramble up a sheer cliff. If you're new to meditation, don't aim for an hour of motionless silence on day one. Start with 5 minutes. Feel the sweetness of that small success. Allow it to become a natural part of you. Every small step taken with presence and love creates powerful momentum. This doesn't mean lowering your aspirations. It means respecting the organic process of growth. The third key to sustainable growth is to learn to listen to the wisdom of your unique being. Your body, your mind, your soul, they are constantly communicating with you. The very practices commendable for one might be destructive for another if there isn't sufficient physical strength and spiritual humility. Spiritual practices are tools, not ends. They must always be guided by sound judgment. This means they can be reduced, increased, modified, or even temporarily discontinued, depending on your state and inner guidance. If a practice, no matter how revered, consistently leaves you feeling depleted or resentful, perhaps it's not for you, or now is not the right time. This deep listening will prevent you from turning a healing practice into a form of self-flagellation. The fourth pillar of true transformation is to cultivate the treasures of the heart. Ancient wisdom reminds us that such virtues of the heart are more pleasing to the divine than excessive feats of mortification when they are not required by our moral state. What are these treasures? They are the awakening and establishment of good dispositions in the heart, the practice of warm prayer, the unyielding overcoming of passionate thoughts and desires, the preservation of purity of heart, love for silence and solitude, humility and gentleness before all, doing good to those from whom one has suffered, and guarding oneself from all that is unwholesome, however insignificant it may seem. Think about it. What truly transforms the world in your inner landscape? The spectacle of extreme asceticism, or the quiet, consistent radiation of kindness, compassion, forgiveness? One can fast for 40 days, but if the heart remains judgmental and unkind, what has truly been gained? Focus on these inner qualities. Let them be the garden you tend with the utmost care. And finally, the fifth principle, binding all together, is to find and maintain your sacred balance, avoiding extremes. Just as it's harmful to fall into unbridled fervor, it's equally detrimental to succumb to self-indulgence and self-pity, excessively coddling yourself and avoiding the slightest discomfort. The text warns against those who, under the pretext of preserving physical health for serving a higher purpose, are so afraid of any hardship that, at the encounter of the slightest labor or deprivation, they tremble, fearing to lose their health. This is an attempt to reconcile two irreconcilable enemies, spirit and flesh, which harms both. The answer? A measured way of life, governed by sound judgment, is safer and more beneficial for both body and soul. This means considering both spiritual needs and physical constitution. Not everyone has the same measure in this regard, though the law is one for all, to keep the body in service to the spirit. Your body is a precious vessel. It deserves care, but its purpose is to support your spiritual journey, not become an idol. When you begin to walk this balanced, wise path, my friend, you gain inner strength and clarity. But be vigilant, for the inner adversary has other, no less insidious traps. One of the most common and destructive is the tendency to judge and condemn others harshly. Have you noticed how easily this happens? How quickly the mind renders verdicts? How eagerly it latches onto others' failings? This is a subtle but corrosive poison. Where does this pernicious habit come from? Perhaps you feel it within yourself. You barely notice someone's mistake, and you're already mentally diagnosing them. And in that moment, don't you feel a fleeting yet treacherous self-satisfaction? This happens because from self-love and self-importance arises in us strict judgment and condemnation of our neighbor. When we give ourselves a high price and think highly of ourselves, we naturally look down on others. What an illusion. We often believe our judgments are justified. But what if your harshest judgments of others are a cry from your own soul for help, a mirror of your hidden fears? What if this universal adversary, your inner critic, opening our eyes, teaches us to watch keenly what others do and say? Not so we become wiser, but to entangle us in the web of pride? The profound truth is that judging others never elevates you. On the contrary, it chains you to the very level of consciousness you're condemning. Every time you judge, you feed your own ego. True spiritual power is born not from judgment, but from deep compassion and humility. Imagine your heart as a garden. Every judgmental thought is a weed. The adversary is cunning. If you're busy looking for specks in others' eyes, you won't notice the log in your own. We see the world not as it is, but as we are. If the heart is pure, a pure and dispassionate eye looks dispassionately upon the deeds of others. So how do we break free from this trap of judgment? Here are a few steps. The first step is to be vigilantly aware of yourself, recognizing the inner source of judgment. As the adversary keenly watches you, logically, watch yourself even more keenly. As soon as you notice a judgmental thought, hasten to deflect this thought from yourself. Don't entertain it, banish it. How? By replacing it with a thought of the good qualities you know in this neighbor. For example, if you thought, he's so disorganized, immediately recall his positive traits and remind yourself you are not given authority to judge. This reversal of thought is a most powerful tool. Your second mighty ally is to constantly remember your own imperfections. If you're honest with yourself, you know your own life has plenty of flaws, passions, and deeds. If you truly strive for healing, all your attention should be on healing these moral weaknesses of yours. And then, you should not have time to meddle in the affairs of others. And if the urge arises, let it echo. Physician, heal thyself. The third principle is to recognize that another's misstep often illuminates your own hidden roots. When you judge harshly some unkind act of your neighbor, know that some root of this very unkindness is also in your heart. We condemn in others what we don't accept in ourselves. Therefore, when the thought comes to you to condemn another, be indignant with yourself. Tell yourself, how can I, wretched one, being in the same sin, dare to see the failings of others? Thus you turn the weapon upon yourself and heal yourself. The fourth path is always to seek a compassionate explanation, even if the transgression is obvious. Even if a person's fault is manifest, visible to all, try to see the cause not in what condemnation whispers, but in what a brotherly love for him might suggest. Tell yourself, perhaps the universe's sheer God allowed him this slip to protect him from vanity, so that through humility he might draw closer to the divine. Isn't it more merciful to think this way? And the fifth chord is to always stand with a sense of awe and humility for yourself, remembering the fickleness of human nature. Recall how many who were formerly lawless later repented and reached a high degree of sanctity, and how others, standing at a high degree of perfection, fell. This memory humbles. Always stand with fear and trembling, fearing more for yourself, and be assured, every kind word about your neighbor is a fruit of the divine spirit in you, just as, conversely, every unkind word about him comes from your own ill nature and diabolical suggestion. If you are tempted by a brother's unkind act, give no sleep to your eyes until you have banished this temptation from your heart. Of course, you might ask, but what if I see clear injustice? This isn't about condoning wrongdoing. You can and should stand against injustice, but from a place of love, not condemnation. Your actions should be aimed at healing, not humiliation. Remember, every time you choose understanding over judgment, you take a step toward your true self. And so, my dear friend, two paths lie before you. One is the path of unconscious striving, where good intentions can lead astray, where the mind readily judges. The other is the path of awareness, wisdom, balance, and compassion. A path where you learn to hear the voice of your soul, accept yourself with love, and strive for growth gradually. A path where you turn the mirror inward and radiate understanding. Which path will you choose today? Right now? Don't wait for the perfect moment. Start small. Ask yourself today, where am I prone to overexertion, forgetting balance? How can I bring softness there? What judgmental thought did I notice? How can I transform it into understanding? What small step toward greater love for myself and others can I take right now? Remember, you are not alone. Within you already resides all the wisdom, strength, and love you need. Listen closely, trust, and take that first step. And may this path bring you not burden, but lightness, not judgment, but freedom, not darkness, but clear light. You are capable of this. You were born for this. The universe is waiting for you to shine. Step into it. Now,